nation, O God. We thank you now in the name that is above every name, and we all say, Amen.
Amen.
You've taught us to say, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Have a successful day.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay. You got the minutes? Thanks. I was going to go one for one. Thanks, Ajaran. Okay.
Honorable Senators, we will begin with our minutes this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Madam Vice President. Madam Vice President, I beg leave to move the adoption of the minutes of the last meeting of the Honorable Senate on the 19th day of July, 2019, if I may obtain a seconder.
Madam Vice, I rise to second. It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of July 19th be accepted as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are adopted as presented. Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign.
None.
Swearing in of new senators.
None.
Communications by the President.
None.
Messages from the Governor General.
None.
Messages from the House of Assembly.
None.
Laying of documents by ministers.
None.
Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentation of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of committees. First reading of bills.
None.
Second reading and committal of bills.
Madam President, we have 3 bills we propose to go through the stages of second reading and committal, and then third reading and passage. They are the Roads Amendments Bill, the Stamp Amendments Bill, and the Gaming Amendment Bill, all of 2019 for the Stamp and Gaming and 2018 for the Roads Amendment. The Roads Amendment is very simple. It is a bill that is designed to increase the penalties for those persons who dig up a public road from $75 to a maximum of $10,000 and then do not restore it. It provides a framework whereby anybody wishing or needing to dig up any part of a public road may apply for a permit to excavate in any public road in the schedule to the amending bill. And hopefully, you know, Bahamians always complain about the fact that the road get paved and a couple of weeks later someone coming and digging it up and leaving it unfixed. So hopefully we will begin to see the end of those days when all of the investment of the Bahamian people in paving roads gets disrupted within a matter of weeks by persons just going in there for whatever reason and digging it up. Usually, though, it's statutory corporations that do it, so we'll see how that works. As to the Stamp Amendment Bill, we have here today 2 bills, the Gaming Amendment Bill and the Stamp Amendment Bill. I'm going to now make a motion now, but I just want to explain that they both ride together, and I'll explain in my remarks. I now move for the second reading and committal of the Gaming Amendment Bill 2019, if I may obtain a seconder. Oh, yeah.
Second reading of the bill.
Yes.
Favor say aye.
I think I should say something right now, very quickly. Yes, thank you. Madam President, the Gaming Amendment Bill represents a negotiated resolution to the actions which attended the attempts of the government in 2018 to reform the basis on which gaming houses are taxed. It represents a compromise relies on all parts, and it seeks to implement two types of taxation. One will be a tax on the profits, the retained profits, the taxable revenue of all gaming houses in respect of casino-type games over the internet, spinning, all of these active game, interactive games, user interactive games, and that will be a tax on the revenue of the gaming houses, up to $24 million in gross annual revenue. Well, in taxable revenue, that means, and I'll explain, the gaming houses may take up to $500 million every year in gross revenue. When they have to comply with the regulations that govern gaming house operators and ensure that out of the gross revenue, upwards of 70% of that money is returned to players by way of winning. So the odds are fixed to ensure that rate of return to players generally. It isn't that if any player puts in $1, he's bound to get back 70 cents. It's sort of spread over the general playing population. So that is why people will gamble and lose and lose and lose, and some will gamble and win. But what the balance between the 70% returned to the player out of the overall roughly $500 million taken from all gamblers every year is what they call taxable revenue. And that taxable revenue is what is being taxed by the dual scale here for those gaming houses that make revenue over $24 million a year. They'll be taxed at a higher rate. So below 24 million, it'll be 15%, and above is 17.5%. There are two gaming houses that fit that bill, and so they will pay taxes on the first 24 million at the same rate as everybody else, but at $24 million and $1, it goes to a higher rate. And so this is, in a sense, a progressive form of taxation, a move towards progressive taxation, and we think in the long run it will serve the country well, because as indicated previously by the minister responsible for gaming in the other place, and also I think by myself at another time, it provides a set framework that the government can adjust according to economic needs. So it could go from 17.5 to 20 over or less. It could be dropped to 15. The 15 could be dropped to 10, and so on. In other words, within the established framework now by this bill, there will be the possibility for flexibility in the actual rates charged, because the principle is now established of progressive taxation in the gaming industry. The other aspect of it is a gaming tax, which is a tax on winnings, and this is a new endeavor. Of course, you recall that there was an attempt to implement through this stamp amendment in 2018 a winnings tax, but it wasn't a winnings tax, it was a deposit tax. So for every dollar that was deposited, 5% was to be deducted. That was felt to be, perhaps rightly, a little unfair, because people may have deposited and never gambled, and yet they were subject to a tax. In the course of our discussions with the industry, a better compromise, we think, was arrived at, where actual winnings would be taxed. Now, for those who say, well, why are you hitting the players? Let us remember that on lottery-type games, no matter where you go in the world, it is the winnings that are taxed. So if you play the Florida lottery, well, as soon as you win, 30% of that goes straight to Uncle Sam. Period, full stop. Okay? 30% goes to Uncle Sam. Well, the government here in this winning tax is only talking about 5%, I think, below 1,000 and 7.5 above 1,000. So it's very small. We're not anywhere near or close to Uncle Sam. Now, because of the imposition of taxation, it is felt by everybody looking at this matter that people will try to run. And there are some midnight cowboys out there who offer numbers, placements, using their telephones and placing these bets over the internet. And so it was deemed to be necessary for that and for other reasons for the gaming board to be given greater powers to regulate the gaming industry. Just to be precise, in 2014, the act that was passed limited the gaming board's authority only to licensed gaming houses. So the gaming board was without power lawfully to regulate persons who were totally ignoring the law and just doing what they want to do, unlicensed persons who were breaking the gaming laws. That was left to the jurisdiction of the police. And for one reason or another, it may not have been as successful as the gaming board would have liked. And really, it's a result of their requests and also the requests of licensed gaming houses. You know, there's one gaming house that is unlicensed that sued the government, that obtained an injunction, and for one reason or another, the matter has not been able to progress, largely because the principal owner of that gaming house had a serious illness, and so that has held matters up from further progress at this time. But the problem is they have, I think, at least 11 gaming houses that are in full operation. So it's a blatant disregard for the law. So we're hoping that the principal owner would have a speedy recovery so that we can have a meaningful engagement with him. There are processes whereby he can legalize his operations, and we'll see. So if not, the gaming board will have the authority to have the injunction discharged and take further steps to ensure that the gaming laws of the Commonwealth of Bahamas are followed. On those notes, Madam President, I commend the bills to colleague. Thank you very much. No, when we have finished the debate on the gaming, then we'll... No, we haven't. Well, nobody debated. Okay, fine. Let's go on then. We'll go to... Okay, I now beg leave to move that this... I was... Okay, I now beg leave to move the second reading and committal of the Stamp Amendment Bill. Thank you. No. Then he'll speak. As many. Stamp Amendment.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act be read for a second time and committed. As many as are in favor, say aye. Okay, the chair recognizes Senator Fred Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm grateful. The two bills, Madam Vice President, are not opposed by the Progressive Liberal Party. And we are pleased that there's been a resolution to this long-standing dispute about taxation. I suppose you can call this what the former Prime Minister used to say as a teachable moment in how to apply tax policy, which is that you cannot, or you should not, arbitrarily impose taxation without actually seeking to get the views of the sector that you're proposing to tax. And what happened was that the government's tax revenue was held up as a result of this process not being what it should have been. So it is now resolved, and I hope resolved to the satisfaction of both the sector and the government. From looking at the body language, it's not for me to say whether the government is split on this section, but it looks as if not everybody's satisfied with the level of taxation, which brings me to the point that I wanted to raise is I was really concerned when I was following both the public comments made of ministers and the comments during the debate, where people seem to be getting mixed up their personal feelings about gambling with the question of taxation. Now, people seem to have this great moral repugnance and have this moral high-mindedness about gambling. And I always remember William Bennett, who used to be the Secretary of Education, is a big gambler in the United States and also Roman Catholic. And they were making a big fuss about him and his gambling debts because I think it was millions of dollars that he would gamble away. Of course, he's a very wealthy man, so millions of dollars meant nothing to him. But he did make the point when they were challenging him on television that gambling is not a moral issue. It's not immoral to gamble. What it is a choice. And if people want to gamble, that's their business. The law even anticipates that there will be problems, social problems attended with gambling. People who go to excess, just as people go to excess in alcohol. The law, in this case, when it was designed, put in there a provision that monies are supposed to be set aside to try and deal with the effects of the ill effects of on the society of gambling. To remind people that I see there are signs around which say you have to act responsibly for drinking, for example. So that's the kind of public education you have to put in place for this. And I think that's the way to deal with this. Therefore, you shouldn't drink. If you can avoid drinking at all, you should, but there's a way. Everybody knows that you can apply yourself responsibly to drinking. And similarly to gambling. It's a form of entertainment, and I think people in their full adult years should have the right to do so. I tried in the last administration to take it even farther. I think we put in the law the provision where the minister can now do it by prescription, by prescribing. But there needs to come a day when there is equality for all Bahamians with gambling. So you gamble anywhere if you want to, that you can even gamble in the casinos. I think that is a grave inequity, which must be at some point corrected sooner rather than later. And so the other issue in the public debate is this concern that I've heard many, many times over, that the people in the gaming sector, Bahamian gaming sector, are making too much money. Do you know how much money they're making? And I'm trying to figure out why are people concerned about how much money they're making. If they're engaged in a legitimate exercise, make as much money as you want to make. It's up to you. And so my feeling is, we have to be careful. We have these public officers, and we want to impose our moral choices on people. And that's not our business. And number two, to covet how much money people make. If we want to make the money they make, then we ought to go out there and take the risks they make. But we chose to be in here. And we knew the salary was going to be $1,000 a month when we came here. If we're dissatisfied with that, then let's go elsewhere. But our job is to make sure that the sector is regulated properly and that people are able to conduct their business with free from interference. I mean, trying to cast this moral negativity on people because they're engaged in this exercise. The people that they talked about, I think someone said, do you know how many gaming houses there are? But it's a free society. And as long as you can get a license and people want to operate, no problem. And you pay your taxes. So now the tax issue appears to have been settled. Now, what I understand is in the place below that there was a thought advanced that this is not the last blow at this, that I think the taxation level is at about 28%. And the idea is to move it up a bit farther. I would caution against that. Just as we cautioned against the increase in VAT. And what we said with VAT has proven to be correct, as you know, is that you can't just calculate that because you get $10 and you raise $2 more that you're going to collect $10 plus $2. That doesn't work like that. Economics 101 tells you that as soon as you impose a cost, people start cutting back and the demand curve moves inward. And so what happens is you collect less. And that's what's happened in this situation. So you don't want to do anything to retard the economic growth and the expansion of the economy. And raising taxes always has that effect. So I would caution against that. And beside that, 28% seems quite adequate. When the leader was speaking below, our leader was speaking below, he was saying that he canvassed around other jurisdictions and that when you look at the overall taxation, when you add the profits, which are said to be something like 44 million and 22 million comes to the government, 66 million, the level of taxation is at about 28%. And that's, is it 33%, but it is, how would you like, is the way he put it, for the government to be applying a 33% tax on what's the name of Mr. Diagula's place? Superwash, yeah. So let's put no, because he's the minister responsible who's advocating a tax, raising the taxes on these people. What if the same level, what if the same level of taxation was applied on his business? I'm sure he wouldn't like it. So I'm saying, just with those words of caution. The other thing we were concerned about is you've created, I heard the minister say that you've created this authorized investigating inspector, which has the powers of a peace officer. So our examination of the matter is we don't quite see why the distinction is necessary, because it appears that you still need to carry a police officer when you're able to do your investigation. So perhaps you might explain that. And the other thing is taxation on winnings. We think that be very careful now, taxation on winnings. I heard that you said Uncle Sam takes, what do they take, 33, but they have income tax over there. So what you're doing is you're putting a tax on Bahamian winnings, which does not now exist. And I wonder if the government would not consider putting $1,000 and above as the kick-in point for taxation. So you leave winners, small winners, people who have small winnings alone, and they can collect whatever they win, and the taxation applies to larger winners. And again, I argue for equity, which is that no taxation on winnings is against those who go in these casinos at Bahama and Atlantis. There's no taxation on their winnings. So Bahamians get taxed for winning, but those who come and gamble in the casinos, no taxation. Inequitable again. And I ask you to look at those issues. Apart from that, those are our comments, and I thank you for the intervention. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't be long. Good morning, Madam Vice President and fellow senators. is indeed once again for me to rise again in this honorable place to address the amendment on this gaming bill 2019. But before I do so, I'm going to be very brief, okay? But I must say one or two things. But before I start my contribution, just let me take this time to congratulate Honorable Mark Hughes that's my member of Parliament for Fort Charlotte, for the tremendous job that he and his Independence Committee did with the celebration and the fantastic cultural event that took place at last week Wednesday or Tuesday night at Clifford Park. It was indeed a celebration that I will remember for a very long time. And like my grandson will say, Grandpa, that was off the chain. It was fantastic. But let me also, Madam President, I'd like to pay tribute to a very good friend of mine who passed away last week. His name is Robert Newton Thompson, better known as Bob, or Beagle to many of us. I like to say that because Bob was my very good friend, and as a matter of fact, he started his photographic career at the National Guardian in the late 60s when he was with a noted photographer by the name of Mitchell. What's his name? Garth Mitchell, okay, who passed on to his just rewards many years ago. The uncle-in-law. And then after that, he attained a scholarship from the Bahamas government, and he went to school at Ryerson Polytechnical Institute, which is now Ryerson University, where he perfected his skills not only in the area of photography but also in cinematography also. And he came back home and he worked at ZNS, where he remained until he retired many years ago. Bob, by the same token, he took all my wedding pictures, and he was a very good photographer at that, and he's the godfather of my eldest child. So on that note, may his soul rest in peace. He will be funeralized this coming Saturday at BFM Church. Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say a few brief remarks on the gaming bill, and that I'm very happy to see that we have finally put in the proper tax regime to the gaming industry, which will allow the government to collect a reasonable tax revenue. And one of the main components of this bill is that it seeks to impose a winning tax on the winnings in the numbers game and not on the spinning games. And it also seek to remove that tax that was originally on the making deposits, which I thought was very unfair. And I'm glad to know that the stakeholders got together and came to a reasonable solution in this regard. The gaming industry has grown tremendously, and many Bahamians gamble every day. And it makes sense to have a tax regime in place. And I'm happy to see that the stakeholders all together got together and came up with the best solution to a fair tax regime. Madam Vice President, gaming is probably the fastest growing industry in the Bahamas. And while it has become the pastime of many Bahamians, and many are responsible gamblers of that, we still have many who are allowing this industry or this new love to gamble rape them and their families. And I would like to caution them that they should gamble responsibly, like they do other things, and to not allow this to become detrimental to their well-being. Just briefly, I just want to say another few words is that let's take a look at some of the numbers that the Minister of Tourism for Aviation in his presentation last week in the House Assembly gave. We understand that there are about over 360 gaming houses or locations around in the Bahamas, with almost 60% of them.
1 per thousand. 1 per thousand.
1 per thousand, so we would talk to it. Okay, that's correct. And with many of them being located, or 60% of them being located in New Providence. They employ over 2,800 persons, and their salary is about, collectively, $33 million per year. So this means that the average salary of the gaming employee is something like $220 per week. The gaming houses themselves, they generate over $220 million in taxable revenue. And we had the spinning number, and you know the government is not taking any tax from the winnings of the spinning number that they make well over. I'm guessing it's well over 30 million taxable revenue. At At this time, the minister estimates that the profits to be about between $30 to $40 million per year. So on that, I say that they're making tremendous profitable, and they deserve all the money they make. And so, in gambling, the houseman never loses. All right, and the majority of people are all aiming to gamble in those gaming houses. So I like to caution everyone to take it easy with your money. Only spend that money that you could afford to spend or lose. All right. The last thing is that we look, and when we look at our other jurisdictions, like the United States.
You are a Bryland man.
I'm a Bryland man.
Speak.
You got my back. They pay us as much as 37% in taxes if they're the lottery, or like we say here, or they catch a number. And in most cases in those jurisdictions, they tax about 24% up front. So this tax on winning is not a new thing, but it's practiced internationally. And then we hear, you're putting all this tax on the winners. People start going to the underground numbers man. This amendment will now give the gaming board jurisdiction over all the gaming and can execute the laws on these illegal entities. The policing of the gaming industry will now be better managed as the gaming board is given the authority to proper police them. This is made possible with the investigation unit establishment and with the gaming board ability to apply the courts for warrants against licensed and unlicensed entities. I feel that they're more capable as they have been doing an excellent job in the gaming industry with the casinos through its many years. Madam Vice President, and if we do it right, it will all work out and we should be happy at the end. Madam Vice President, I support the amendment to this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me commend all senators who have contributed for the quality of their presentations on this bill. Let me just try and answer 3 points made by members, the member opposite, the leader opposite. The reason for our prudential caution in doing two things. One is clothing the investigatory agents of the gaming board with the powers of peace officers. That really deals with the ability to deal with someone, you see someone doing something right away. That's the fellow who is on the street going around collecting the numbers. They have the power to arrest him on the spot. But because the midnight cowboys, if you will, would not have registered office places, would not have an office, and likely you're dealing with accoutrements and things that would be in the home of that person, it was thought to be wise, prudent, and within the limits of the Constitution, that even with a court order should only occur in the presence of a proper police officer, not a deemed police officer. Because the one thing we would not wish to have is for any violation of any constitutional rights, etc., and we are dealing, in our thinking, the likelihood is that they would be dealing, the officers would be dealing with the sanctity of the home. And that should only be breached with the proper armament of a court order, but also by an experienced police officer to avoid any possibility of any collateral violations of rights. That is the reason for those provisions in the bill. It is really to protect the human rights and the constitutional rights of everybody in the society. With regard to the issue of the taxation on the winnings tax, I am intrigued by the suggestion made. I find it is attractive, the idea that the small winnings, a couple dollars here, there, and so the one thing, as I said in my remarks about the framework, it's a framework that can be adjusted now. It can be adjusted. It's easy now to do so by way of a change in the regulations. These rates, etc., are set out in the gaming house operators regulations, which will in due course, after the passage of this act, today, with hopefully all of your support, will be brought in by way of the tabling of the regulations in the House of Assembly on Wednesday. Once those regulations are tabled, they can always be adjusted going forward. So it is something that I can assure you will be fully considered going forward, and we will see how that consideration goes, so that perhaps by next year when we come to do the budget, it may be possible to have some adjustment when we see the outturn, if you will, over the course of this year. The third point is the perennial argument, once again brought forward, about the dichotomy between the casino-based gaming industry and the domestic gaming industry. And I think that we have to really accept that some 60 years ago, the lawmakers of this country made a conscious decision to allow gaming in the Bahamas because of the economic benefit as an add-on to our tourism product. And so, while it is true that there is no winnings tax on any lotto game, there are taxes based on gross revenue on the casinos themselves. And while your tourist who would, say, do a numbers game will not have a winnings tax, that tourist is paying room tax. That tourist is paying to travel to the Bahamas. That tourist is paying to occupy a hotel. Thereby, by their presence and their consumption, both of the room and of a whole host of services, they're providing employment to thousands of Bahamians who would not otherwise have it. And so there is a balance and a trade-off. But at the end of the day, both forms of gambling are significantly taxed, domestic and casinos. And in relation to the tourist, he's taxed by the room tax that Bahamians don't have to pay. So on that note, Madam President, I would ask that the question on the Stamp Act now be put.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill for an act to recommend
The Stamp Act. We already passed it. Stamp Act. Here it is.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act be read in second time.
That's me.
As made.
Aye.
Those nay. The ayes have it. The bill is read forward.
For the second reading.
For the second reading.
Madam President, I beg leave now to move for the second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Roads Act.
Second, Madam Vice.
As many as in favor? Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes. Hold on a second.
Thank you. As I understand it, Madam Vice President, this roads amendment bill is designed to put in place a regime where people who want to dig up the roads have to get permission from the minister to do so. And will have to pay for a permit, get permission, and restore the road, and are subject to fines if they don't do so. It is meant, said the Attorney General when he was speaking in the summary comments before the bills were actually introduced, to put a stop to the annoyance that we now have where a brand new road is paved and then a few days later, the road is dug up. The reason I get up because one of my guess my greatest benefactors in the Finley administration was Loftus Roker.
Great man.
And,
Good man. Yeah, we give a round. Hard man.
he served as Minister of Works, Minister of National Security, so, and immigration, yes.
National security and
That included immigration.
Right.
But I used to, he also was responsible for appointing me to the board of the telco when I was 23 years of age. Served there for 2 or 3 years. And so I used to speak to him every morning, basically about 7 o'clock, and he and I would sit down half an hour, 45 minutes before the workday began, almost every day. And I remember him as Minister of Works telling me about this grand plan that they had where all of the corporations, because the corporations were also under his, were part of his portfolio, were going to be able to meet with the Director of Works, and they were once and for all going to solve this problem of paving the roads, and they're being dug up. So it amuses me that one generation later, we're still trying to figure out a way to solve this problem. And if I recall correctly, when Nico Grant was the Minister of Works, and they were doing East Bay Street, he said the same thing. All of the corporations are going to meet. They're going to say, you know,
what their needs are.
Fix them before we pave the road. And I'll be done if after he paved the road. Within 6 weeks, they were back right there churning up the road. So I'm not sure whether passing a bill or an act is going to solve the problem, but I say to the Attorney General, good luck. Good luck. But I do want to use this opportunity to ask for the government's investigation and advice on this matter, which has to do with something which happened in Fox Hill a couple of days ago, the roads.
Okay.
A lady calls me and says that one evening she's going to bed and she heard some people outside, and they looked like they had equipment to cut trees. So she wasn't particularly disturbed about it. She just asked them what they were doing. They said they had to trim the trees, and she went inside, went to bed. But something she said in her spirit told her, get up and check a second time. And when she went to check a second time, the people had cut the trees down to the stump.
Oh my God.
Now, these trees, as far as she knows, are on her property. They're sapodilla trees. This is Fox Hill. The trees are cut down to a stump. And when she was asked by the company how they could do this, they said that the Ministry of Works told them that because it was the verge, that the government could do what it likes. They could just come and cut your trees down. Now, something seems wrong with that, because I thought in the new regime, I haven't read the specific law, but the new regime was that at least if you're going to do something of that kind, you would give notice to the person, I'm about to cut your trees down, do you have any objection? Or I'm acquiring the land for the purposes, because I'm told they intend to build sidewalks on the Fox Hill Road South between the roundabout and Prince Charles Drive. So all along there, they've gone and they've cut these trees flat down. And the reason I mention that is because there's a song that I remember that says, don't it always seem to be that you don't know what you got till it's gone. They paved paradise. They tore down paradise and put up a parking lot. You remember that song? Don't it always seem to be, you know?
You're aging yourself, because I can't remember.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can do, but that's what I thought, you know? That's what I thought about is that, you know. Yes, it plays all the time. You know, it's quite a popular song, but you know, what you've done is you've taken up and you said this is progress. But you know, I only mention it in particular because it's Fox Hill. I just wonder to myself what people are thinking. You come to Fox Hill, right? Everyone knows that Fox Hill is dilly trees, you know, dilly trees. trees, and you come and you cut the trees down.
Yep.
So I was talking to the leader of the opposition, but he was reminding me that there is a bill. It was to conserve the cutting down of trees. The bill was repealed and replaced, I think, by the present Subdivisions Act.
Private subdivisions.
Right, and the schedule was put in that act, and there's a list of trees which you can't cut down. Now, I remember silk cotton trees being on the list. I do not remember sapodilla trees being on the list. But the point is that there ought to be some kind, even if that is the case, there ought to be some kind of cultural sensitivity to the place you're going to. I mean, sidewalks, of course, you need sidewalks, obviously, because people walk along the sides of the roads. But to cut down, and what the expression the lady used to me is, this is at Blueberry Hill in Fox Hill. She says, I have never felt so violated in my life than to walk outside and find the trees that are older than me cut down to the stump. Something's got to be wrong with that. So I bring that to the government's attention. We have no objection to the bill. And as I said, good luck to you on roads. On the roads. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would once again like to congratulate all the senators on the quality of the debate. The member opposite made some very trenchant observations, and I must say that I well remember Nico Grant perilously saying, when we finish this road, no more digging up. And 6 weeks later, it was dug up. And as I said in my concluding remarks, somewhat hurriedly, because I really didn't want to admit it, but you drag it out of me, yes, this Roads Act really applies to government corporations. I can't think of any except the richest who would have any reason to go and dig up a government road for any purpose. And so obviously it is aimed at government corporations in large part. Let me say that on the question of trees, you were preaching to the converted. Here I have a thing about cutting down trees. I just don't think that, say for like the casuarinas, which are parasitic non-native species, I have a problem cutting down any Bahamian tree. So I'll look at it. We look and see what the law says.
Could you just 2 minutes?
Yes, I yield.
Because I found the exact lyrics, right?
Okay.
They say they paid.
Hold on, say it.
Yes, no, they paved Paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. And the chorus is, "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone." They paved Paradise and put up a parking lot, right?
Yeah.
And she goes on to say they took all the trees and put them in a tree museum.
Yeah.
And they charged the people $1.50 just to see them.
Yeah.
Don't know. Doesn't say.
The Bahamian.
Yeah.
Bahamian song.
Joni Mitchell is the writer.
Oh, Joni Mitchell. Oh, that's
yes,
an American
right.
song. Then.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Don't it always seem to be that you don't know what it's got till it's gone?
That's right, Joni.
Yeah, they
Joni.
paved Paradise and put up a parking lot.
Right.
Thank you, Senator, for educating us.
I'm sure she was talking about Paradise Island, but it sure sounded like it. I'll say that much. I'll look into the statutory issue. So on that note of harmony in terms of nature and the preservation of our environment, I ask that the question now be put, Madam President, Vice President. Madam Vice President, there's no further second readings. I now beg leave to move that the Senate do resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with Senator the Honorable Johnny Ann Dorset in the chair. I always say Wani Ann, but when I said Wani Ann the last time, I got a look. Oh. So it was Johnny Ann. Senator Honorable Johnny Ann Dorset in the chair, please. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Yeah.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate dissolve itself into the committee of the whole. Resolve itself into the committee of the whole. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion's passed. Committee of the whole. Mr. Leader.
Yes, Madam Chair. I beg that the long title of a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act be agreed. If I may obtain a second.
It's been moved and seconded that the long title of a bill to amend the Stamp Act be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The long title is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that the short title of the act be agreed.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the short title of the act be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The short title is agreed.
President, I beg leave to move that Section 2 of the act be agreed.
Madam Chair, I second.
It's been moved and seconded that Section 2 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Section 2 of the bill is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
Madam Chair, I so move.
It's been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill in its entirety is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move for the second reading that the long title of a bill for an act to amend the gaming act be agreed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the long title of a bill to amend the Gaming Act be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The long title of the bill is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move for that the short title of the bill be agreed. Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The short title is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that sections 2 through 10 of the bill be agreed.
Aye. Sorry. A second.
It's been moved and seconded that sections 2 through 10 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Sections 2 through 10 are agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
I rise a second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill in its entirety is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that the long title of a bill for an act to amend the Roads Act be agreed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that a bill for an act to amend the Roads Act be agreed, that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The long title of the bill is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that the short title and commencement of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the short title and commencement of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The short title and commencement of the bill is agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that sections 2 through 6 of the bill be agreed.
I rise to second.
It's been moved and seconded that sections 2 through 6 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Sections 2 through 6 are agreed.
Madam Chair, I beg leave to move that the schedule to the bill be agreed.
I rise to second.
It's been moved and seconded that the schedule to the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The schedule is agreed.
Yes. Just for note, the schedule is divided into 2 forms, but they're in the same schedule. Okay. Madam Chair, I beg leave now to move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
I rise to second.
It's been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill in its entirety is agreed.
Madam Chair, there are no further matters in committee. I now move that the Madam Vice President do take the chair.
Right, second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Vice President take the chair. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Vice President will now take the chair. Madam Vice President, I wish to report that the 3 bills before us have gone through committee without any amendments having been made to them.
The last time we come before the recording, we lost Martha City.
It has been reported that all 3 bills have been agreed without amendments. If, third reading.
Thank you, Madam President. I beg leave now to move for the third reading and passage of the Roads Amendment Bill 2018. If I may obtain a seconder.
I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Road Traffic Amendment Bill. The Roads Amendment Bill. Be read a third time and committed. And passed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill is passed. Okay, order that the bill be read a third time. Order that the bill be now passed and the title of thereof roads declared to be Roads Amendment Act 2018. For the third reading.
Madam Vice President, I beg leave to move for the third reading and passage of a bill for an act to amend the Gaming Act.
It has been moved and seconded that the Gaming Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. As many as are in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Gaming Amendment. Order that the
Stand up. You have to stand up. Stand up.
And the gaming up.
A bill to order that the bill be do now pass. And the title thereof be Gaming Amendment. Declared to be Gaming Amendment Bill 2019. Although. third readings.
Thank you, Madam President. I beg leave now to move for the third reading and passage of a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act.
It has been moved and seconded that the stamp amendment bill be read a third time. As many as are in favor? Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a third time.
A bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act.
The bill has been ordered that the bill be now passed and declared to be the Stamp Amendment Bill 2019. Stamp Amendment Act. Consideration of House amendments, resolutions.
Nominations first. Yeah.
Discharge of select committees, notice of future meetings.
Yeah, I saw them, but I can't agree. I have to speak to the speaker.
How long have you been involved? How long have you been? How long have you been?
No, you don't have to be there. No. The first reading on Thursday.
No. First reading is on Friday.
Okay, the first reading on Friday. We'll do first reading on Friday.
But they're going to be
Okay. All right. First reading on Friday. Okay. Madam Vice President, apologies for the last-minute negotiations, but we're moving towards the adjournment of Parliament, if you will, for the summer break. And there are just a few bills that have to be amending bills that have to be passed both in the House and in the Senate. And we're trying to juggle around the PLP convention so as to not cause inconvenience to any members opposite, particularly those who may be running. So that's where we are now. But I think we've arrived at a situation. So on that note, I would merely wish at this stage to renew all items in the name of the government on the agenda and to give notice that the next meeting of the Senate will be Friday morning of this week, where we'll have first reading of these last few bills with the intention of debating and passing into law on Monday, the following Monday. Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, sorry. Madam Vice President, I'd like to renew all notices standing in the name of the opposition, please.
Adjournment.
Madam Vice President, I beg leave now to move that the Senate be now adjourned on its rising to Friday, the 26th day of July, 2019 at 10 a.m. If I may obtain a second.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded that the Senate adjourn until Friday the 26th of July at 10 a.m.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The Senate is adjourned.
Madam President, I now move that the Senate be now adjourned. Now you say it.
Senate is now.
As the opinion shall rise.
The Senate is now adjourned.
Amen.